All right, so let's talk about personal statements because they're huge in the.
Oh, you want to impress with your personal statement? Here's what you do, okay? You make sure you write about somebody in your family that got sick, okay? Very sick, and then you saw it and it inspired you to be a doctor. You should do that. And also, chat GTP for yes.
Uh, don't do that.
Everyone is doing it like that.
Oh, okay. So that's the problem with personal statements. There are a lot of good personal statements out there. No, they're not. There's a lot of bad personal statements out there. Um, your goal with personal statements is to stand out. And the way you don't do that is to do what everyone else is doing. Um, it's super important to get the personal statement right. In fact, in the most recent NRMP Program Director Survey, there were 40 factors that program directors cited as reasons why they would offer you the interview. And if you take a look at it, just go over to the NRMP website. If you look at these 40 factors, personal statement is number 5, right? It's like the 5th most important thing, and for very good reason. A lot of applications, these days they look the same. They similar scores, similar year of graduation, similar U.S. clinical experience, and the personal statement is an excellent opportunity that is wasted all the time to stand out from the other applicants. I can't stress this enough. I cannot tell you how many um, personal statements I've read over 16 years that start off with something really, really generic, where, and it's not to discount how important the story is to you, but you have to realize that when you talk about, not you, but when a candidate talks about, my father had a heart attack, my uncle had a stroke, I remember when I was young, I got sick, and starts to talk about how they saw doctors and what they were able to do and that inspired you. Listen, if you are the only personal statement that a program read every year, you might be able to get away with it. But you have to understand that they read hundreds of PSs that season, and almost everybody did that. Okay. So there's a lot to unpack here. In fact, I will say something. I tried something out a little earlier. Um, and it is one of the mistakes that people make during a personal statement. They use ChatGTP for, which especially over the last season, it got really bad, where a lot of candidates took the easy way out and plugged in a few prompts into Chat 4, hoping that it would spit out a strong personal statement, which it almost never does. In fact, I put in a prompt and I said, if a candidate is applying for the match, write me a prompt. Write a personal statement that would be considered a bad personal statement. And it spit out somebody getting sick as the first paragraph every time I ran that test. So if ChatGTP 4 thinks it's bad, and the reason it knows it's bad is because, or it's common, is because it's been taught that is common because of what everybody else is inputting into it, for the past match or two. Okay. So, um, the top 4 mistakes that candidates make all the time on the PS, and this is what you need to avoid. Okay. It's what I demand my own students avoid when we're working on the personal statement together. And number 1, the thing that we just mentioned, the telling the same boring cliche story about somebody getting sick. Most candidates will make their PSs about medical and academic. It has its place in a certain part of the personal statement, but certainly not to open up a personal statement. Your job is to assume that they've read 100 PSs that day before they got to yours, and then ask yourself, would your first sentence, would your first paragraph get their attention as the 101st personal statement read? All right, so that's number one. Number two, huge mistake, repeating your CV. That you'll a candidate will start to talk more about a volunteer thing they did with Doctors Without Borders, or something about an observership, or something about the research, and they'll expand upon it. Which, listen, nobody ever reads a PS. No program will ever read your personal statement until they've reviewed your ERIS application and your CV, mainly because it doesn't make sense to read a personal statement and take the time to do it if their CV doesn't qualify. So they know about that stuff already. It doesn't really separate you. So the reason it's a critical mistake is because of the recommended length for a personal statement. Personal statements are not supposed to be books. They're not supposed to be long. Generally speaking, they should be about a page, page and a half in Microsoft Word. Okay. Now, could you make it longer? The system actually allows you to make it longer. Like, you could put a longer PS um, in the system, but is anybody going to read it, especially if it's written poorly? Okay, so avoid repeating your CV. You want to talk about things that they don't know about you yet, right? So um, the third thing, this doesn't apply for everyone, but it applies for a lot of candidates, especially IMGs, not explaining red flags. It is a gigantic mistake in the personal statement. You know, if you have that red flag, year of graduation, maybe you are an old grad, or a low score, or multiple attempts. If they got to your personal statement, they knew about it already, right? The reason for a personal statement, or to read a personal statement in that particular case, is they're willing to potentially forgive, maybe not overlook, but forgive what you've done, or what the red flag is, if you give us a good explanation for it in your personal statement. So you really don't want to avoid it. It could cost you certainly interviews. And then number four, and this is not, it's kind of by accident. I just kind of put it as the last one because it's the most recent mistake. And it's number four is Chat GTP4, or any AI that helps you write. Um, it, the reason it's a mistake is, number one, AI will never write the way you would write. Um, the one thing that you should always remember is this: you're not being hired to be a writer. They're not hiring you for your writing skills. The personal statement doesn't have to be written perfectly. It it just needs to sound genuine. It is last season, for example, when people started to write personal statements through ChatGTP 4, it always it never really sounded like them. When they would go to an interview, the PS would be written like an American, an American that went to college, like he took classes, has been writing like that their whole life. And when you have an IMG, or somebody that doesn't have that type of background, when it's written so perfectly, right? With words that we never use on a daily basis, and then they meet you during the interview, it becomes very, very clear that you took a shortcut and you cheated on your personal statement, which, integrity and being genuine, is how you boost your rank listing when it comes to the match. So I could talk all day about the problems of the Chat GTP 4 or AI writing a personal statement. I will post a video on it separately, but I will tell you that is one of the top mistakes that we have seen. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. You all have worked so hard to get to where you are. You didn't take shortcuts. You did USMLE World, and you went through those hours and hours of doing and understanding the explanations. Some of you took classes, and um, you're throwing it away on a document that is supposed to help you stand out, but instead is making you look, no offense, lazy when you're not. Okay. So let me give you a few tips that should help you avoid some of these mistakes, and with the goal of making sure that if everyone else is doing it, you're not doing it if it's going to cost you interviews. Your job is to do it better, to do it different, to do something where a program director or a faculty reading your PS would read it and say, I like this guy, or girl, lady, woman, um, or insert pronoun. Um, I like this candidate. They bring up different topics. They explain things really well. They don't do what all the other PSs are doing. This is certainly going to be, or promises to be, a very different interview experience. This person will give me better answers. You want to treat your personal statement, for sure, 100%. You want to treat it like a pre-interview. You want to treat it as the document that will earn you an interview. And the best way to earn an interview and convince them to interview you is to show them, here's how I present topics, here's how I explain things, and here's how I am different than the other candidates. Okay. So there are a lot of creative ways to do it. I mean, over the years, there's the standard way, there's the safe way, which I'll show you. But there's also very creative ways to do it. I had one doctor who, um, I learned what I learned about her was she used to write journals, like journal entries, like a diary, every day for as long as she could remember. And she would write it through med school, through like the years of practice. She did it for a long time. She did it when she became a mother. So she was basically documenting her experiences over the years, which, is really important if you're an old graduate like she was. In any case, it made sense to actually make a PS that would look like um, something extracted from her journals. And it was a way for her to present her experiences that was organized and different than what everybody else did. Now, that's really like the only PS that I've ever worked on that looked like that. Use it or not use it, it's different. I had one doctor who graduated like 20 years prior to her application. And so it was a lot. And what we did was we broke it up into different chapters, different articles, and we wrote it like a newspaper where the reader can actually go to a specific story if they wanted an answer to a specific question. So we actually put a table of contents in the very beginning of what was a 4.5 page PS, but they didn't have to read the whole thing. Like, you would just see that you could read one or two of the stories and explanations in there and know that this was a different candidate. And that particular candidate had multiple failures, low scores, really old grad, no USCE, and matches at the University of Washington, which is a great program, in internal medicine. So, one proven way, an easy way to do this, you don't have to do all that creative stuff. There's a very simple way to stand out, and it's to do the thing that culturally, for most of us, we were taught not to. And when I say most of us, I'm talking about people that were or from a culture outside of the United States. And my background is Filipino. And in the Philippines, we are taught Just like a lot of my friends and doctors from India and Bangladesh, Pakistan, Egypt, wherever. Brian, don't air out your dirty laundry. Don't bring up your mistakes, your failures, the fact that you had problems. You don't tell that to people outside of the house. You brag about yourself. You tell everybody, your relatives, your aunties and uncles, all this awesome stuff that you've been doing, because that's what your parents and your grandparents are doing when they talk about you. In the personal statement, there are so many candidates that they brag, they talk about these achievements. And I'll be honest with you, and I don't know if this will get edited out, but you sound like an asshole. Like you sound like think about it. If you met somebody for the first time and all they did was brag about their accomplishments, think about it. Would you want to be around that person? Do you like them? Right? Would you want to have dinner with that person? I think we all know the answer to that. Well, when you write a PS that way, that is exactly the feeling that you are giving programs. Um, so do the opposite. Talk about, first of all, avoid the medical and the academic, because that's what everybody else is doing. And again, there is a place for it lower down, farther down in your PS. Your job in the first paragraph is to get their attention, right? And so do the opposite of what everybody else is doing when they're bragging or talking about that stuff. Talk about a time when you sucked at something, when you made a mistake, when your decision making was poor or your actions were embarrassing, right? All the stuff that our relatives, that generation would tell us not to say it. Okay? If it was embarrassing enough, I'm willing to bet that you took steps to make sure that never happens again. Whether you cheated on an exam and got caught and you realized it's not worth cheating, or you were impatient, or you had a short temper and it hurt people and it hurt your family. Whatever mistake you made growing up or over the years, or as a parent or as a spouse, tell us about it, right? But the most important thing there is, tell us that, listen, it was a huge mistake. Here was what I did wrong. And here's how I've adapted and changed, and what I learned to make sure I don't do that again. Mistakes help you grow, right? And if you grew, then you gained a strength. And that strength or that approach or that skill, you clearly must have used it to get this far, right? If something happened when you were 10 years old and it changed your approach to studying or preparation, well, it probably helped you get this far. So what you do with that is now you start to explain in the next paragraph, listen, I am choosing internal medicine or whatever specialty you're choosing. And that lesson that I learned when I was 10 years old is something that has helped me get through medical school. And it helps me with every patient I see on the internal medicine floor. Now, give me internal medicine examples. Tell me about how you would use it in your practice back home if you practiced already. Show me the application of it. You don't have to do it in that paragraph. If you don't have a red flag, do it on the next paragraph, right? Where you say, maybe you're 30 years old and this happened, the earlier story happened when you were 10 years old. Well, the third paragraph would be, I'm Asian, that's bad at math. Yeah. Uh, 20 years later, 20 years later, after that first incident or that embarrassing incident, I found myself in a similar situation during my practice or my general practice back home. I had this patient in front of me and I had a decision to make. Do I do this or do I do that? And I didn't want to make the mistake that I made when I was 10. So I did it this way. Show me now that when you make a mistake, you can apply it in the real world in your practice as a physician. That's one way to do it. And why is it a beneficial way to do it? It's a beneficial way to do it for one big reason. The job that you are applying for, part of the skill set that they want from you is, are you a trainable person? Right? Do you love learning? Do you, when you make a mistake, do you like cry about it and you try to hide it? Or do you say, I made a mistake? That sucks. All right. How do I fix this so it doesn't happen tomorrow or it doesn't happen later today? That's a perfect resident. Okay. Residency is not about you being like knowing everything. Residency is saying, can you adapt? Can you learn um, during these years that you're with us? Okay. So, what else is important for you to know? Well, listen, I am more than happy to share um, strong personal statements that I can give you samples of and examples of weak personal statements. If you want to write, if your goal is to write an interview winning personal statement, I'll show you what a weak PS looks like, what a strong one looks like, how you turn a weak PS into a strong one. I'll be hosting a live stream on our YouTube channel, and I will have them put it in the description below. And the YouTube channel is at Match with Dr. Brian. I'll put it in the description, and I could also put it in comments. If you want some examples that emailed to you, I can put it in PDF format of old PSs that were bad and old PSs that were good. Just, I guess, type in comments down below PS samples, and I'll have them send some over to you so you can kind of use it as a guideline. But I hope this was helpful to you. Personal statements. Um, personal statements are a critical part of getting somebody more interviews. Now, one thing that you should also know is this: they don't always read your personal statements. They don't, sometimes there's no need to read them in two particular circumstances specifically. In the first circumstance, if you have a candidate that is so overqualified, like they've got awesome scores, they're U.S. citizens, they have hands-on U.S. clinical experience, like you have a candidate, a dream candidate, you don't really have to read the PS. Like you just offer them in the interview, right? And the other case is if somebody is super underqualified, where they looked at somebody's application and they said, oh, the score's too low, or too many attempts, or the year of grad is too low, or a combination of all those things. Well, if somebody's like super underqualified, well, your PS is not going to get read. It's a waste of time. No offense to you, but if you're not going to read a PS with somebody that you would never rank to match at your program. So how is it important to you? Well, it's important to you where at programs where you're kind of in the middle as far as what they're looking for, or maybe even on the lower end, and they're going to give you a shot, to try and get the interview. I can explain why programs in another video, why programs always, smart programs, middle tier, lower tier programs will always offer interviews to people with red flags, and has something to do with the SOAP and avoiding the SOAP. We do cover that in another video. I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope all these things with the personal statement. Let me know how it goes. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
Everyone is doing it like that.
You guys aren't going to do it like that, right? You're not going to do it like that. And good luck to everybody.
Yeah, that's what I said, right? That's what I said. Ah?